De Grote Tech Show wordt mede mogelijk gemaakt door Orange Cyberdefense. Van strategie tot uitvoer, jouw cybersecurity in vertrouwde handen.
Goed dat je luistert naar de Grote Tech Show. Tech verandert onze wereld. Hier hoor je hoe. Ditmaal vanuit het perspectief van Nebius. Een AI-cloud bedrijf, datacenters dus, dat een steeds grotere rol krijgt in het bieden van cloudopslag, maar vooral rekenkracht voor AI. Ze komen uit Rusland, maar zitten nu juist in Nederland. En daar willen we alles over weten. Wij zijn in mijn geval Joe van Burik.
En Ben van den Burg.
En Ben,
ja?
Wij hebben het in onze extra podcast, die vanaf elke donderdag te beluisteren is, in de podcastfeed van de Grote Tech Show, deze week over jouw ervaring met
Full self-driving.
Supervised
zelfs.
Ja.
Dat wilde ik gewoon vanaf 2017. En,
nu is het er in Nederland.
Ja, als je 9 jaar wacht, heb je dit.
Nou, blijkbaar. Dus daar gaan we het over hebben. En natuurlijk het vertrek van Apple-topman Tim Cook en zijn opvolger John Turnus. Dat gaan we allemaal bespreken in de Grote Tech Show later deze week. Dus volg hem in je favoriete podcast-app. Nu dan gaan we praten over Nebius. En vooral met Nebius als bouwer en beheerder van datacenters. En juist belangrijk voor de ontwikkeling en toepassing van AI. Zie ook het recente nieuws dat Nvidia $2 miljard investeert. Ook met het leveren van hun eigen chips. En recentelijk een deal van Meta ter waarde van 27 miljard... om diensten bij Nebius af te nemen. We'll be talking about all that and more in English, because our guest today is Tom Blackwell, Chief Communications Officer at Nebius. Welcome on our show, Tom.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you for being here. So you got settled in Amsterdam, we should say, as the new headquarters of Nebius. I was there last week, briefly met your CEO, Arkady Volos, as well. Mm-hmm. What's the most important thing we should know about Nebius?
So listen, we're building an AI cloud, and we're probably one of the handful of the top companies in the world that is doing this. So what is the AI cloud? It's really the compute and the back-end infrastructure that any company needs to be able to fuel AI workloads. So whether it's an AI startup or scale-up to an enterprise customer, from your cool tech companies to Heineken and everything in between. So they need this cloud sort of to support their AI workloads, and that's what we're building.
Yeah, so any business that does anything but AI can be catered by you.
Effectively, yes. Really, the only other companies that actually have all of this infrastructure themselves, it's the big tech hyperscalers. So whether it's a kind of Google or Amazon and so on, but really, effectively, any other company, they need this cloud that we're building.
Right. Yeah, but also Azure and also AWS, they have also an AI cloud, because you can do a lot of things in the cloud there with AI.
Absolutely, and that's really the way to think about Nebius. It's really think about AWS and Azure and so on. That's really effectively the product that we're building ourselves.
Okay, the same, but then specific the AI cloud. And why is it called the AI cloud? Because I hear also, is it an AI factory? And in an AI factory, you built an AI cloud. Is that correct?
Well, yeah. So
all those
there's a lot of jargon, and actually, by the way, it's a new industry, and everyone's still trying to throw around different terms, and we'll see which ones stick. But I think that the main distinction when you think about AI cloud actually is the distinction is really, we had a previous storage cloud, compute cloud, right? Which was the first generation cloud. And actually the companies like Amazon and so on, they started with the previous generation cloud. And now they're converting that and upgrading and changing it and adapting it to suit AI workloads, which is a different type of technology you build in a different way to be able to support AI. So one of the advantages that we have actually is that we're a new company, and we actually, when we started building our cloud, we built it specifically for AI from scratch. So we're not repurposing legacy technology. We're actually building AI cloud fresh, specifically around the needs of AI.
Right. Well, we'll get back to the technology bit in a little bit. Now, I should add, usually we don't interview communications people on our show, but you are on the leadership team as well. How did you get involved with Nebius, given its Russian origin as well?
Yeah, well, actually, once upon a time, in what feels like a very distant previous life, I actually used to live in Russia, and I've known Arkady for some time, and known some of the original founding members of the management team.
Right.
And so, actually, it was a conversation I think that started in Amsterdam, even going back to 2022, when I was thinking about what am I going to do next in my life, and I actually met up with Arkady, and we had breakfast, and I said, I think I have to reinvent myself and come up with something completely new. And Arkady said, yeah, I'm thinking the same thing.
But this was at the time of the Russian invasion in Ukraine.
Yeah, exactly. So I left the country a few days after that, and won't go back. And a lot of people found themselves in a situation where they were starting again, and wanted to do something new outside of Russia. And so that was actually the original basis of the initial sort of engineering team, several hundred people that used to work actually at Yandex and who left Russia to start something new.
So do you still have some of the Russian culture in the company? And what is that?
So I wouldn't say so at this point. I think we're a company of about 2,000 people, 70 different nationalities, operating between Europe, the US, and so on. So I think it's really evolved into a global culture, and with all of the challenges that come with that, by the way.
Yeah. But what kind of culture? Can you describe it?
I think it's a very much an entrepreneurial culture that's driven there. Nebius, it's an unusual company in some ways. On the one hand, we're large. We're a $40 billion market cap company with a couple of thousand people, but still very much a startup mentality. The way that people think, the speed at which we operate, it's very much like a hungry startup rather than a big tech company. And I think that actually that's something that really attracted me to the culture, and I think it's a key ingredient of our success.
Yeah, but this makes it all the more interesting for us in the Netherlands to be talking to you and to be writing about Nebius. I mean, it's been documented in some Dutch newspapers how you moved to the Netherlands. Now, I believe there was already a registration for Nebius in the Netherlands. I'm assuming for fiscal reasons. But what other reasons made you choose the Netherlands as your new basis?
So the main reason really was that, when we were thinking about putting this together, we understood that we wanted to be based in Europe. That's where a number of our people were already located. And we actually looked at a number of different options in different European countries. And actually what we found was that as we were having conversations, including at a governmental level with different stakeholders, we just saw that actually there was a lot of support for what we wanted to build here in the Netherlands.
Right.
And so that was, in a way, it was an important first step. And so people started, first of all, we started with probably 10 people, then that became 20, that became 100, and then now we're at probably more than 600 people, and it's our main head office.
And support from whom?
Just at different levels. You deal with people at a kind of a municipal city level, at a more of a federal government level, just because for us it was important to explain who we were and what we wanted to build, and we wanted to understand, and we really felt that our vision for building this kind of global tech leader out of Amsterdam was shared by everyone who we spoke to here in the Netherlands, and so that was what really brought us here. Yeah,
but it is very interesting because when I was visiting your offices, I heard, we were here and suddenly we found ourselves in the top 10 or 12 of Dutch companies in terms of revenue, I guess. Yeah. What does that mean for your perspective, for your values, for your strategy to now be a Dutch company?
Look, we're very proud to be here. We're very proud to be based in Amsterdam. And actually, in a way, we could be probably based in any European country or in the US, and you can still build this. It's not country specific what we're building. It's a global product, right?
Yes.
But I think what really makes it work is that people just like being here. They're very set. So it's
not the quality of life for your people.
Quality of life. People are very settled here. You have a lot of families that have moved here, and everyone enjoys it. They enjoy being here, and so that really sort of makes it feel real to us. And I think actually, you saw the new office we just moved in there last month actually, and that was
Nicole
also
used to be there. A tech company from the 70s, as Arkady put it.
Yeah, exactly. But by the way, that was a really important milestone for us because before that there were a number of us, but we were working in the shared office and we were sort of bursting at the seams. And now it's the first time it's our office. It feels like home actually, and so that was important for us. I think it was the next real big milestone in our development here.
But it's interesting because we talk about the Dutch ecosystem for tech companies all the time. Yeah. And now suddenly you've joined the party and there's optimism and there's like, no, we like being here.
Yeah.
Can you imagine how it's an interesting change of tune for us to hear?
Yeah, absolutely. We're happy to be part of that party. And I think we're a good contributor to it. I think what we're building is really special, actually.
And we always also hear that the education level is high, so that's also an advantage. Do you recognize it also, I think? Yes?
Without a doubt. And it's a great hub. You can access the world from Amsterdam and so on. So we feel that the ecosystem is vibrant here, and we're happy to contribute to that.
And the disadvantage always we hear is that there is no financing. The financing level is difficult. How do you achieve that, to have the good finance?
So I wouldn't say that there's no financing here, but it's true that the majority of the global finance sits in the US at the moment. So we're a Dutch company, but we're listed on NASDAQ. Yep. Right. Many of our shareholders are from the US. A lot of the sources of funding are in the US. So that's true. Eventually that will probably change and will evolve. And I think that we can talk about some of the drivers of the future growth of AI, but it's true. Yeah, a lot of the money sits in the US, so you have to be able to access that to be able to build a global cloud business.
Yeah. So to be talking about your actual business, the easy way to say it is you build and rent out data centers, but surely there's a lot more to it.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's really important to understand that differentiation. You do have companies that build data centers. There are data center companies out there that's not us. Now, we build this sort of full stack AI cloud. So what that means is that we have teams that know how to build the data centers. We design our own servers and racks, so everything that goes in the data center, we sort of design ourselves, with the exception of the chips, which is largely Nvidia.
Yeah. Yes.
And that's the one sort of external input. And then we build our own cloud and all of the software and services around that. So I think that's an important sort of differentiator between some of the other new players in the cloud space. And so that's why when we talk about AWS as more of a sort of comparable business, because they also have the capability of building that full stack, right, as opposed to one slither of the stack, right? Whether it be the real estate side of it or some of the inference side and so on. So, and having that full stack, we think, is a big advantage.
Yes, and we always hear there is energy going in, and smart tokens are coming out.
Yeah,
so
that's what you heard at Nvidia.
Nvidia, so you produce tokens.
Absolutely.
And for me, smart tokens is always when you going to decide how you make your broccoli. I mean, it's not so smart in my opinion. When you make new energy sources, that's smart.
Yeah.
Can you explain more about energy in, what's happening, and then smart tokens out? And what is a smart token for you?
Well, so when we think about energy, one of the advantages of building entirely ourselves is that it allows us to be more energy efficient. So if you look at our energy usage compared to the sort of industry average, we're well ahead of the average there, and that's important. And so effectively, what that means is that if you look at the compute, you get more out of the compute. It uses less energy and more of the tokens effectively, yes, for the same amount. So that's something that's an important part of what we deliver. And again, what's the real value actually in the stack is what we're doing at the top end of the stack in the cloud and all the software. That's the tokens. It's driving inference and so on. And so that's a kind of key part of our differentiator in the cloud industry.
Ja. We praten zo verder met onze gasten in de Grote Tech Show na deze boodschappen. En nu verder in gesprek met ons gast. So you make possible, so to say, the application layer that's built on top by Absolutely. All your clients.
Yeah.
How's your involvement there as well? Do you, for instance, develop certain applications by example? How do you adjust your presence in the top layers of the stack to, cater to different needs?
Yeah, so we're not building our own LLM. So that's the one thing that's what's enabled at the top, and we have everything that enables that. But internally, of course, we do. We look at this. We have an amazing AI R&D team. Actually, that team is led out of London, between London and Amsterdam. And these are some of the smartest people in the world who know. And they're constantly developing these things internally to understand really what our customers need and what the model developers need. So we do play around with this internally, but just so that we can better understand the needs of the customers.
Yeah. So when I was visiting, I heard about the big five of LLMs. I'm assuming that's OpenAI, Anthropic,
yes,
Meta,
yes,
Google.
Exactly, yeah.
Google,
yeah.
And Mistral?
You've got them. Yeah, exactly. Exactly right.
So that's the 5 LLM builders you're mostly working, but you're just limited to working with?
But by the way, bear in mind, I mean, who are we working with? Actually, it can be the LLM, the big foundational sort of the frontier models, right? But it's everyone else, right? So it's thousands of AI startups from a small company that just got funded to a large corporation and everything in between. So the universe that we're working with and servicing is very broad.
Right.
So where is the most difficulties to grow? Is that in the data center layer or in GPUs to work with Nvidia, or is it the orchestration layer or in the application layer? So where is the
you need to be very good in all of the layers, right? Now, so if you think about from a challenge standpoint, or what are the potential limitations? Obviously, there's a big discussion around power and access to power, because without power, you can't build.
We'll get to that.
We'll come on.
Energy, yeah.
But we have an amazing infrastructure team that I feel like they probably never sleep, because they're kind of constantly expanding our capacity pipeline. pipeline. So, when we started this business just under 2 years ago, we were talking about 25 megawatts in one data center in Finland. We're now talking about gigawatts of scale that we're building, over the coming years. So we've grown massively, but that's not easy. So, they're looking around Europe, around the US, principally around the world, trying to build out that capacity pipeline. And there's big competition for that capacity. So that's one thing that you need to be able to deliver that. But it's actually, and at the same time, we're building the way to think about our business in a way, it's capacity and product. So we have to have the capacity to be able to deliver at scale, and we're also building the product, which is the AI cloud platform.
I can understand that you when you build a data center, regulation, energy, that's difficult, but it's manageable.
Yeah.
And also to buy the GPUs at Nvidia, it's manageable.
Yeah.
But the platform layer, to make the Kubernetes, to make the platform layer, I mean, then everyone needs to use that.
Yeah.
So I can imagine that's also challenging.
Well, I would say perhaps challenging, but I would also put it in your manageable box here because, and why is it manageable? Because we have a spectacular team of people that are just really good at this stuff, So, and again, it's we were lucky to have such an amazing engineering team to start with, and we've been expanding that as we've gone. But these are some of the smartest minds in the industry around the world. I think every one of our engineering people, these are people that could walk into a job in big tech on any day.
Yeah.
And as it is, we have several hundred of them working all together to build out this whole platform and to driving the depth of the technology platform. So we're lucky to have a team like that.
Yeah. So as you mentioned, you have a data center in Finland. You recently announced a new one of Europe's largest dedicated AI factories, as you mentioned it.
Yeah.
At the same time, you have one in Lille in France, in the UK, in Iceland, a couple in the US.
Yeah.
How do you go about and select these locations, and what's the process that ensues?
Yeah. So. We're constantly looking. We're constantly looking at how we can secure more capacity to expand, so that we're really going to be able to operate at the scale of the hyperscalers. Right. It's a team of people that go around. They look. They select. And I think one of the things why we're quite good at this, they're very quick in assessing what's going to work, what's not. And again, actually coming back to one of the points I started with. We're a hungry startup in reality, and the pace at which we move. So we're competing against other large tech companies when it comes to these sites. And there's something about that sort of when you identify a site, you can get to it. The legal team might review it tomorrow or in 2 days, or they might stay up all night, and we do it by 7 a.m. So sometimes we just find that we're able to really compete against the biggest tech companies because we're also just fast. We're good and we're fast.
And you use AI, of course, for the analysis. I heard so.
By the way, actually, we, despite the fact that we're an amazing high-tech company, if you look at the corporate side of the business, we're not as high-tech as we should be. And so actually, we're like many corporations around the world, we're starting our AI journey internally.
Not to mention, I heard Arkady say during my visit, our main language is broken English.
Yeah, absolutely. And we speak it very well.
Yeah, well, you do, but and I believe your colleagues do. No, but seriously, Tom, I mean, we all know building and operating data centers has become quite a hot topic. Not just in the Netherlands, all across the world. We see a lot of civil pushback in the US, most notably as well. You need a certain approach in realizing these new data centers. You need to get all the stakeholders, including local citizens, including groups, on board.
Yeah.
And we know recently there was another project in the Amsterdam region that was, announced recently but signed off years ago by another company which happened to rent it out to Microsoft.
Yeah.
How do you go about this process to get everyone on board?
So you're absolutely right. It's a big hot issue and a lot of debate. I mean, there's not a day that goes by without this, the debate around data centers being had, right? So I think for us, the way that we approach it is that as you say, there's multiple stakeholders that need to be on board. So you just have to approach it extremely transparently. You have to come in and...
So this is fundamentally different from the hyperscalers then?
Yeah, I think that, what we see is sometimes when they're competing, they're sort of behind NDAs. No one knows whose project it is and who's actually building it. So we have the reverse approach because we don't think that's the right approach. And so everybody knows what's ours. When we want to build somewhere, we come in. It's clear who we are. We explain who we are. We explain what we're building.
And you don't get shown the door immediately once you say, hello, we'd like to build a data center in your region.
No, but you at the same time, you can't take anything for granted. So we show up up at town hall meetings. We talk to the kind of local mayor. We speak to the kind of, so you need to understand, you build up a broad sort of coalition of support. And ultimately, when you explain it, and, now not everybody has the same view. Not every state has the same policy. And so you have to sort of build where you believe you can have that support. But usually we find that as we explain it, as we engage, as we come to these community meetings, and as we explain what the value is, the economic impact, the technological impact, we find that actually fundamentally there is support there, but you can't take it for granted, and it doesn't happen automatically.
No, but in the end, it's also, and especially in the Netherlands, can we build houses for the electricity, or do we build an AI cloud? Mm-hmm. And that's all. And the people, why we need data centers.
Yeah, well, I think that there's also, I think that there's also a debate around whether Europe should have its own infrastructure, or whether Europe should be dependent on infrastructure outside. And we're in a way agnostic on this topic. We're building here in Europe anyway, and so if that helps for Europe to have more of its own infrastructure and be less dependent, then we're happy to contribute to that cause.
Yeah, but that's an interesting topic, because there are plans for an AI gigafactory in the Rotterdam region, mm-hmm. but now the Dutch government recently said we don't want to spend any of our money on it. I imagine it's an interesting prospect for you to be involved.
Look, we're constantly looking. At the moment, our main European projects, as you said, you mentioned Finland, Iceland, France, UK, if we can still call that Europe.
We will.
But for the purpose of today, let's say yes. So look, we're always looking. So far, we found that those geographies that I mentioned were ones that have worked well, but we're constantly looking, so we'll continue to assess opportunities.
But could Rotterdam be of interest to you?
Well, we always look at options.
You always look at options. So moving back to the tech stack, if you look at serving big partners, Microsoft is a client of you as well, including Meta, given the recently signed $27 billion deal.
How do you achieve that? Yeah. That they signed for $27 billion when I look at your revenue?
We have an amazing technology team and an amazing corporate development team that do nothing but working miracles every day. But no, look, we're it's part of, by building out this capacity pipeline as quickly as we are, we're able to sort of service deals of that scale. But what's important to understand is that, of course, a $27 billion deal is a great deal, but we're in a capital intensive industry, so we're going to be investing sort of tens of billions, or more in the future, and so being able to fund that in a smart way is extremely important. So when we look at a contract like that, whether it's the sort of $18 billion contract with Microsoft or the $27 billion with Meta, this is funding. This is funding for our core business, which is this multi-tenant AI cloud business that's going to be servicing sort of thousands or hundreds of thousands of AI customers around the world. That's our real strategic interest. A big contract with Meta, it's funding to drive the core business.
Yeah, but that's the interesting part, because at the other side of the ocean, we've got CoreWeave in the US, mm-hmm. which has been the topic of debate, like, who's funding that, and what does that mean for the value? Whereas as you mentioned, multi-tenant cloud, you want to be, you want to spread your chances, if you will, to be able to have a good future to build.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that the reality is, if you look at the big sort of hyperscalers, eventually the sort of supply and demand will level out, where they're not going to necessarily need outside providers like Nebius. So for us, when we look at the future isn't based on these hyperscaler contracts. The future is based on enterprise customers and sort of AI natives. And so for us, we're happy to do it now, because it allows us to move faster in investing in this cloud business. But the future is the companies that can service the hundreds of thousands of customers, not three big customers.
So that's like the major and even minor companies in the Netherlands or any given country that just go to you directly.
It's probably going to be Heineken and ABN AMRO, right?
But are you already involved with, for instance, those parties, or how do you intend to serve them even more?
So this is the journey that's just starting to happen if we look at enterprise customers around the world. And so, most corporations are just really starting to do AI in a meaningful way, and they're just at the very beginning. So, some of the industries that have been, let's say, earlier, faster adopters, life sciences and healthcare is a big one. I think finance is sort of emerging. We're going to start to see the growth of physical AI, which is in the sort of manufacturing processes. But again, right now, I think that when it comes to enterprise adoption, we're at the tip of the iceberg.
So what do you envision then? Where are we headed?
I think we're heading to a place where any company, whether you produce consumer goods or you produce something high tech or your financial services or you're doing drug discovery, I think that many of these processes are going to be driven and accelerated by smart adoption of AI.
Yeah. So in the meantime, you do have these major clients as your business partner. At the same time, they're bound by to address or to operate by European legislation.
Yeah.
How's that either a challenge or an opportunity for you?
It's probably more of an opportunity. I think the fact that we have this very significant footprint in Europe means
because they still need data centers in Europe to do their business.
Well, so if you're a European customer, for example, you may very well want your data to be stored in Europe, to be subject to European data requirements. Some people think about it from a sovereignty standpoint. So there can be a variety of reasons why a customer may want to be working with the sort of having capacity here in Europe, and we're able to provide that. We also have capacity in the US that can service US tech and so on. But effectively, the way that the regulation works is that you're bound by the local regulations of where the infrastructure sits.
But this is an interesting point, Tom, because we keep hearing, yes, we need a major European cloud provider. There is none. Now, you do AI cloud, but given the increasing appetite for conventional cloud, if you will, is that an interesting avenue for you to look at, given European digital sovereignty?
No, we're going to stay very focused on AI cloud. And I think that that will be a differentiator against some of the other sort of let's say hyperscalers. But and actually I think that's where most of the growth is going to be as well.
Right.
So no, we'll be very focused on building the AI cloud, AI workloads.
Yeah. Now for me, it's most the balance between it's so capital intensive. Yeah. Do you get the speed and the money, and then can you get the money to grow? That's for me a challenge, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's definitely a key challenge. So far, we've been very good at solving that challenge, and we think we'll continue to be.
Yeah, well, what do you need, both for your current and future position in terms of the technology stack? What do you need to future-proof your position?
So, this is actually... It's not an easy industry to just jump into, right? Because it's on the one hand, it's as we mentioned, it's very capital intensive, but it's also very technology intensive. And there aren't many companies in the world that have the capital as well as the engineering expertise to build this. And so I don't think that you're going to see lots of new players entering this space. I think it's going to probably come down to a handful of players around the world that account for the majority of the global industry, and we see ourselves being very much in that handful. But it's you can't just sort of wake up one day and say, hey, let's start doing AI cloud, because it's you need a lot of money and a lot of brain power that's very hard to organize and gather and acquire.
Well, thank you so much for being with us. Tom Blackwell, Chief Communications Officer at Nebius.
Thank you for having me.
Tot zover voor nu. Luister de Grote Tech Show juist ook als podcast via elke app waar jij podcast luistert. En dus vanaf elke donderdag ook onze analyse over wat er verder speelt in de wereld van tech. Tot de volgende Grote Tech Show. Dag.
De Grote Tech Show wordt mede mogelijk gemaakt door Orange Cyberdefense. Van strategie tot uitvoer, jouw cybersecurity in vertrouwde handen.